It's been a while since a city builder in the classic style came along that felt as addicting as this one. But more than addicting, Citadelum, made by a small team of passionate developers, has won me over with its attention to detail, fun mechanics, diversity in gameplay, and overall charm. And in this video, I'll tell you why. And if you're into strategy games or city builders, make sure to follow my link below to visit Instant Gaming and receive massive discounts on your most wanted titles. I think a reason why those classic city builders from the 90s and early 2000s had so much charm is because they followed a certain tried and true logic, one that stayed consistent for every playthrough. No, they are perhaps not as ambitious as your city skylines or as complex as your larger strategy games, but they never had to be, frankly. They weren't supposed to be. City builders like Pharaoh and Caesar offered fairly clear cut structures, and if you understood their design, you could build entire cities and societies in hours, places that looked awesome and crowded and alive. As with many strategy genres, city builders have to some extent gone slightly out of fashion in the past decade, but I really think Citadelum is an example of a title that understands why this genre was so great to begin with, and it makes this game all the better. You see, despite featuring roughly the same foundations as, say, Grand Ages Rome, which is a personal favorite of mine from back in the day, Citadelum takes inspiration from Anno and similar titles, but indeed takes place in a classical setting. I love that we're actually back in Roman times, but with visuals that, sure, are not revolutionary, but which still comes across as charming and beautiful. Here, you'll get to build your sprawling city with its space in the Forum, raising houses for the plebeians and the patricians, lay down your industry, and of course, witness those towering temples to honor the gods. Something I noticed I was loving instantly about this game was that the beginning of each map eases you into it. You begin with an abundance of money, which allows you to build the necessities like housing, food, and resource industries. The more you build and accommodate, the more immigrants will reach your city to live and work. And once you reach certain population thresholds, the higher your city prestige levels rise, slowly opening up new buildings for construction. You'll consistently lose money in your first few days of playing because you actually don't have any revenue. But once you have patricians moving in and you build a tax office and hire tax collectors, you'll actually gain tax revenue, which if you have enough patricians, will make you rich. The important thing, of course, is that while plebeians will mostly be happy with enough food and jobs, patricians will need specific types of food, entertainment, and perhaps even education, all of which costs money and labor. Of course, plebeians or no, everybody wants to live in nice environments and away from industry, which is where the game's attractiveness system comes in. Certain buildings like farms and factories will severely lower the attractiveness of certain buildings, while raising decorations and monuments that beautifies your streets will raise it. This is important because by accommodating the wants and needs of your citizens, it will allow their housing to upgrade and improve, gaining you more housing spaces or tax revenues depending on the buildings. This means that when you plan out your city, not only should you be mindful of where you build your industry, perhaps being careful to place it in the city's outskirts, and leave a few spaces between your houses and monuments so you can comfortably place down decorations like trees and fountains and statues to ensure the happiness of your inhabitants. I seriously love how beautiful Citadelum looks once you've built up your city a tad, and the fact that we can move the camera in any direction and pan in and out means you can look at it from basically any angle you wish. I have to say that despite the visuals being somewhat rough around the edges, for example, it's fairly easy to spot that the horizon is actually a 2D cardboard stand and that there are no actual mountains in the distance. I love that if you zoom down, you can see the inner workings of every single building. Watch as your faithful citizens pray to the gods, witness the factory workers piecing together their materials, and yes, take a gander at your soldiers working to meet the needs of the Empire's military force, whether with sword, bow, or on horseback. And this is where Citadelum cranks it up a notch. You see, Citadelum is built on multi-layered ground, meaning that we have the city map, which we know and love, but we also have the campaign map layer, where we move scouts and armies to other locations. While scouts uncover new territory and find other cities, which allows you to trade with them, giving you new sources of income or resources, you may also move your soldiers around to clear the wilds of roaming barbarians. Barbarians, by the way, who may invade your city and create chaos. And guess what? Whereas recruiting town guards in your city allows you to automatically protect its various corners, Citadelum actually has battle maps. They're fairly simple, mind you, but the fact that we fight battles in a simulated space that are relatively hands-on is awesome. The pre-battle stage allows you to set up your soldiers where you want them, while the battle stage sees both armies march toward each other until they clash. They even look surprisingly great, with archers firing from the back, infantry closing in deadly combat, and even cavalry swooping in for massive damage. When it comes to warfare, it is a level of realism and immersion that stomps on the likes of Civilization or Age of Empires, and for a small studio whose developers released one of their first games, it's an amazing accomplishment. Now, Citadelum is just a single-player game, but I feel like if they somehow made it possible, that it would be awesome to play this game in multiplayer, with opponents building their cities, fighting for resource towns on the campaign map, and then clashing on the battlefield. A pipe dream perhaps, but it would be cool. Our last campaign layer concerns something I've personally never seen before, at least in a very long time: actual active gods. Because those temples you build are not just for show, they actually allow you to communicate with the gods. And the gods have a very special role in Citadelum. I mean, in what other game have you seen gods take actual physical form, chilling out in heaven until they're either asked to come down and bless your people, or get so angry they just have to remind you that they exist? By spending money and the appropriate resource, you can cater to any of the various gods for specific rewards, depending on what you need at the time, like happier citizens or filled pantries. The god's favor is measured on a scale from outrage to happy with you, but you must beware. If you forget to honor some of them while showing respect to only others, the ones who feel left out will get angry and start torching the place. I think what's so charming about this game once again is the attention paid to animations and visuals, because on top of what we already talked about, once you ask the gods for help, they will leave their party and jump down from Olympus and begin roaming around your city to bestow their blessings. It's a really fun thing that you don't really see elsewhere, and I really appreciate the effort put into making Citadelum so fun and full of these unique quirks. There are a few aspects of the game that come across as slightly tedious though, and that is first and foremost balancing workers and worker limits. You see, every factory or place of industry use workers, and every plebeian in the city wants a job. Thing is though, you must decide how many workers a factory may employ, but because this is static and only moves based on your changes, it can feel tedious to constantly increase or decrease workspaces while paying attention to new workers, especially because if we keep some available for future workplaces, people might move away because they don't have a job right now. And while I understand that the system is meant to be simple and it's partly why the game works as it does, it would have been nice for it to have been a bit more dynamic and flexible in cases where you have an abundance of resources in one place but need workers elsewhere. The second aspect concerns the range of important buildings like markets, fire stations, and building maintenance. As it stands right now, their effective range is just way too small. You'll constantly be beating yourself up for forgetting to build enough fire stations because suddenly a fire will range just outside of its range, and because buildings aren't maintained where you feel like they should be. Increasing the range of important stations like these would go a long way to make the experience less frustrating. All in all, if Citadelum managed to fix these immediate issues, and perhaps also make the map just a bit larger and more varied, it would go a long way in removing any annoyance or shortcomings I'm currently feeling about it. Because as it stands, Citadelum is frankly an amazing city builder, one that combines a structured, mostly predictable, and classic city builder experience with a small campaign map side and even a battlefield that comes across as more brutal and immersive than even most AAA studios offer in this genre. I highly recommend checking out Citadelum if you're in the market for a classic city builder that's simple enough to understand and won't necessarily demand hundreds of hours to get the full experience out of, and which comes at a very friendly price of around $20 US. Let me know what you think of Citadelum so far in the comments, and make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and follow my link below to buy your next game for a massive discount on Instant Gaming. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!